Today, I want to extend to you the traditional Easter greeting. Christ is risen. And your traditional response is very good. Again, I hope that today finds you well, that you're staying safe and distancing yourself from others. There's that word social distancing. We never heard that word before, did we? Well, it continues to be challenging for us. I suppose this is probably the most unusual Easter you've ever been a part of. I know it is for me, to not be in church. I don't suppose that since I was a little boy, I've not been in church on an Easter Sunday. You've probably seen it on the internet. Even though the churches are empty, remember, so is the tomb. And that's what we celebrate at Easter. But as we really enter some times that are unusual for us, I was thinking about an experience that Mary and I had some years ago. We had a rare privilege to visit the Holy Land. And part of that visit, well, it was a cruise, surprise, huh? And the cruise left from Istanbul in Turkey. I'd never been to Istanbul. I bet many of you haven't either. And I thought, well, this will be different, but I can't wait to get to the rest of the tour. Well, our guide picked us up at the airport. We'd been on an overnight flight. You should see some of the pictures from that time. We were a couple of sad-looking tourists. And once we found one another, which was no easy task either, we got in the car and off we went. The first question he asked me was, how many people do you think live in Istanbul? And I thought, well, I didn't want to insult him. And I said, well, probably what, 2 million, 3 million? He turned around, looked at me, said, there are 15 million people living in Istanbul, certainly one of the largest cities on the planet. And for you trivia buffs, it is the only city in the world that spans 2 continents. Part of it is in Europe, and part of it is in Asia. Maybe you've heard of the Bosphorus. The Bosphorus is that bit of water that separates Asia from Europe. We saw a lot of things that I was fascinated by. We were there parts of 2 days. I would go back again if I ever thought I could physically. And maybe those are things that are physically past many of us now, but boy, if you ever get a chance to go, go. The thing that I want to recall today because of a picture that I have is the Hagia Sophia. Huge, huge building. It was an early church. It was built in the mid-500s. Yeah, 500s. That's a long time ago. 1,500 years, more or so than 1,500 years ago. And it was a huge, continues to be a huge building. The main dome of the building, which you'll see here, is over 200 feet in diameter. 250, I think. A football field is 300 feet, to give you a sense of a comparison. It's built without any steel, without any girders or any metal at all. It's all with block and brick and plaster. It's an amazing structure. For nearly 1,000 years, it was the largest church in the world, the largest church building in the world. It was a cathedral. It was the seat of the head of the Byzantine Church. The Byzantine Empire was what was left of the Roman Empire, the eastern half of the Roman Empire as it began to crumble. So again, for about 1,000 years, this was a church. It saw many historical events and people, things that occurred there that were part of the history of the church. But sometime in the mid-500s, I'm sorry, in the mid-1000s, around 1045, something like that, the Ottoman Empire, the Muslim Empire, conquered Istanbul. And, Christianity became outlawed, so to speak. The Hagia Sophia sat unused for a long time, but eventually realizing the wonder and grandeur of it, the Ottomans turned it into a mosque and worshiped their faith for a long time. Perhaps you saw in the picture the minarets, the 4 towers at the corners of the building. Those were added. That's a Muslim thing, Muslim feature. Those were added as part of it. And within the Hagia Sophia, when it was a church, there was an amazing variety of Christian art and symbols. And many of them were kept because Jesus and many of the Old Testament characters are part of the Muslim faith as well. But a lot of the symbols they covered up. They put different of their symbols and their representations in there. But an interesting thing happened. Over the years, some of the Christian symbols began to reappear. For instance, here you see this cross that had been covered up, but over the years, again, it began to reappear. In the 1930s, Turkey became much more of a secular state, and the Hagia Sophia no longer became or no longer was a mosque. It became a museum, and it's a magnificent museum. But to think, for all these centuries upon centuries, that building is essentially the way it was shortly after it was constructed in 500. But that picture, that cross coming through the other symbols, really struck me. The surety of the cross, the constancy of it. Many cultures and many individuals and many times has been tried to cover up the cross, to cover the sacrifice of Jesus, the life and death, the burial, and the resurrection that we celebrate today. If Jesus has been covered up or denied, but it just keeps coming back. The truth of it, the reality of it, the effectiveness of it has never gone away. Maybe that's a thought that we can put in our heads today and allow ourselves to be encouraged by. Yeah, things are different, probably as different as they've been for most of us in our history, although many of you have lived through the world of a world war, the second one, and I know that was a difference. Things were very unusual then, but I don't think for any of us who are alive today, my age and younger, we've ever seen anything like this. But the cross is constant. And the cross, not that it represents just the sacrifice of Jesus, but the victory of Jesus, the affirmation of his life, of his sacrifice, that we celebrate not so much with the cross as with the empty tomb. That's what Easter's all about. That's what our lives are all about. The constancy, the faithfulness, the power of the cross. Let's not forget that. Let's remember always that no matter how the world tries to cover it up, the cross is there. The power of the cross is true. Thanks for being with me today. Again, I hope that your coming week is a good one, and that remember we're 7 days closer to this being over. God bless you, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.
How great the chasm that lay between us, how high the mountain I could not climb. In desperation, I turned to heaven and spoke your name into the night. Then through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is written. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom such boundless grace? The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross has spoken. your buried body began to breathe, and out of the silence